On this episode of RevHang, Ben and I talk about the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Let's do it. Hello everybody and welcome back to RevHang. I'm Nathan and alongside me across the airwaves is my good friend and co-host Ben Bagley. How you doing today, Ben?
Pretty good. The sun is out. I got to mow my lawn yesterday and I get to go see a concert in Portland.
Nice. Sounds fun. Yeah, the sun is out. It's been really nice the last couple days after lots of rain.
Yeah, it almost feels a little early for it, but I'm not going to complain.
Yeah. Not going to complain at all. It's been warm, which has been pretty nice. But let's move right into the race we have to talk about today, which is the Formula One Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. We'll start with qualifying to give you some context. The top 10 were Sergio Perez on pole position, followed by Fernando Alonso, George Russell, Carlos Sainz, Lance Stroll, Esteban Ocon, Lewis Hamilton, Oscar Piastri, Pierre Gasly, and Nico Hülkenberg. Now, one thing to note is that Charles Leclerc actually did qualify in P2, but he had an engine penalty, which we will talk about later on.
And Logan Sargent's time would have been good enough to get him ahead of Hülkenberg, I think, right?
Possibly.
At least, yeah, I'm still bent out of shape on that.
Yes, Logan Sargent had a pretty good lap, but he had it deleted. I think he had 2 laps deleted over the course of qualifying for crossing. Well, I don't know what the first one was for, but the second one was definitely for crossing over one of the lines on the main straight. It wasn't the pit entry line like they kept saying on the broadcast, but it was a little bit past there. For some reason, if you put even just a tire just a little bit over that line, they would delete your lap.
Yeah, and on one hand, I thought it was a really weird place to be so specific, because you don't really gain an advantage from crossing that line. But at the same time, it was dumb that he forgot not to cross over it, because he didn't gain an advantage by crossing over the line.
Yeah, it was kind of a little bit of a lapse of judgment on his part. However, he did say that in his post-qualifying interview that he wishes that they would have enforced that more strictly during the practice sessions, because he said he was doing that the entirety of all the practice sessions and no one ever said anything. So even while it was in the race notes and he said that was on him for forgetting that, he wished that they actually policed it in the practice sessions so it would have been more fresh in his mind.
Makes sense. But yeah, really disappointing, because he had an incredible time in Q1.
Yeah, for that Williams, he would have made it to Q2 for sure. But unfortunately, he did not get a representative time on the board, and so he started in P20. Another thing to note, going into Q2, Max Verstappen had his drive shaft broke during qualifying.
Ah, yes.
And so he was also not able to set a representative time in Q2, so he started in 15th place.
Yeah, so a little bit of a pole shakeup.
Yep, we had Verstappen in 15th and Leclerc down in 12th, so it was really anybody's. Well, I guess with the Red Bull the way it is, Perez was almost guaranteed pole position, which he got by over 0.5 of a second, or almost 5 seconds. Yeah, just under 0.5 of a second, but still.
Yeah. And we already saw last season that Max starting from way back in the grid doesn't really affect his performance at all.
Right. So let's move on to the race. It started off, and Alonso was able to take the lead into turn 1 after getting a fantastic start, but he was quickly passed by Perez on lap 4. On the first lap, Piastri lost part of his front wing and had to box. Just more problems for McLaren. Another thing to note is Alonso got a penalty for being outside of his grid box on the start, and he was very much outside of his grid box.
Yeah.
It was not even close.
Yeah, so I'm learning about a lot more new penalties this season than I ever thought I would 2 races in.
Yeah, it's been interesting. They've been enforcing stuff way stricter than they usually do or have in the past.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that's a good thing, honestly. If you're breaking the rules, it should be penalized. But there's a lot of controversy there. But yeah, so he got a 5-second penalty that he was forced to serve in his next pit stop. Moving on, Verstappen quickly made his way through the field, along with Leclerc. They were cutting through traffic like it was nothing. Leclerc got up to about P8, I believe, before his forward progress kind of stalled out. But Verstappen did not stall out at all. He made his way all the way up to P4, when on lap 18, Lance Stroll had an engine failure and caused the only safety car of the race. On the restart, Verstappen started from 4th and made quick work of Russell and Alonso in front of him, and pulled right up behind Sergio Perez. After that, Lewis Hamilton passed Carlos Sainz on lap 22 to move into P5. On lap 27, Alex Albon had to retire from the race with a brake failure. It was kind of a weird incident there. He had this brake failure, and then he drove right past the pits. It was a little strange. I didn't really understand it, but he decided to slowly go around for another lap before coming into the pits to retire the car. Maybe he thought that there was something his team could do, but it didn't seem like they could do anything. It seemed like a brake-by-wire failure is what they were saying. So, unfortunately for Alex, he did have to retire the car. After that was
very strange.
Yeah. On lap 46, way later in the race, Kevin Magnussen passed Yuki Tsunoda to take P10 in the last points paying position. And then for the rest of the race, Perez and Verstappen swapped fastest laps, but Perez was able to maintain about a 5-second gap to Verstappen for the whole race, I believe, because Verstappen had a problem with the car. We still aren't super sure what that problem with the car was. It was never really stated, and then Verstappen was able to take the fastest lap on the last lap of the race, so who knows?
Yeah, he was very convinced that there was something wrong with this car, but engineering clearly was not.
Yeah. It was kind of strange. I don't know. He said there was some high-pitched noise when he got high into the revs. I'm inclined to believe the driver because he's in the car, but evidently it didn't really affect anything.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I'll see if that follows him into next week, but I'm sure if it does, then they'll get that sorted out in the practice sessions.
Yeah, one of my favorite Max things is, I saw it a lot last season. He'd be like, something feels weird with the car, like the car isn't performing like I want it to, or something like that during the race, as he's setting fastest laps and just gapping people.
Yeah. Lewis Hamilton's been known to do that too.
Yeah.
My tires are gone, Bono, and then all of a sudden he's like the fastest car on the track by a country mile.
Yeah. Oh, there might actually be something left there. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so that was the race. Going into the results, Sergio Perez won the race by about 5 seconds, followed by Max Verstappen and Fernando Alonso on the podium. 4th through 10th is Russell, Hamilton, Sainz, Leclerc, Ocon, Gasly, and Magnussen. 11 through 15 is Tsunoda, Hulkenberg, Zhou, De Vries, and Piastri. And then 16 through 18, rounding off the finishers, were Sargent, Norris, and Bottas. And then our two DNFs for the race were Albon and Stroll. So, this was not the most exciting race, I'll say it.
No, this is definitely a race to use the half-hour highlights that they post after the race.
Absolutely, yes. I would, if you want to go back and watch it, like Ben said, do the half-hour highlights. Basically, half the race was basically nothing. It was just people driving around. Not a lot of action for most of the race once Max got through the field. And, Red Bull domination continues. That car is an absolute rocket ship. It makes all the other cars look like F2 cars. It's actually insane.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like there's Red Bull and then there's the midfield.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of crazy. Like, you just see the difference on the straights, especially between the Red Bull and every other car. It's like the commentators would get excited when Max pulled up to the back of somebody, like, oh, is this person going to defend from Max? And then Max is like past them halfway down the straight. It was crazy. That car is insane in a straight line. It's insane in the corners. I don't think anyone's going to get even close to them this year.
No.
So Alonso had some penalty drama at the end of the race when he came into the pits to serve his 5-second penalty for being outside of his grid box. One of the rear jackman, put the jack on the back of the car, and you're not allowed to touch the car for 5 seconds when you're serving a penalty. So after the race was over, he received a 10-second penalty for that, which would have dropped him to 4th place. However, a few hours later, and after some Aston Martin complaining, they decided to rescind the penalty, and so Alonso was promoted back to P3. Kind of weird.
Yeah, that was not handled very well.
Not at all.
No, like, Alonso clearly should have gotten it. Like, I didn't really have any doubt in my mind on that. Even watching, like, the leaderboard, Russell is, like, a 1/10 of a second behind him when it showed Alonso crossing the line, if the timing boards are accurate from what we see. I'm sure there's a little discrepancy between what the timing boards show on the TV and what the FIA has access to.
Yeah. I don't know. It's very strange, that whole situation. It's hard to say what really went on there, but hopefully that doesn't happen again, because it's no fun to have the podium not knowing if someone's going to be on the podium, and then they get taken off the podium afterwards, and then they get put back on the podium hours later.
Yeah, it's
but
a real pain.
It did make for some interesting and funny meme-worthy exchanges between Fernando Alonso and George Russell on Twitter.
Yeah, it almost makes me want to go to Twitter.
Yeah, that's the only thing that could even remotely make me want to go to Twitter.
F1 drama and F1 memes, yeah.
Exactly. McLaren is still at the back of the field, even after not having 2 DNFs. It's not a good year to be a McLaren fan.
No. And all the Danny Rick fans who were being told to cope last year when he left McLaren are now very happy that he's at Red Bull.
Yeah. A lot of people are saying Danny Rick wasn't the problem. I don't think Danny Rick was necessarily the problem, but, I mean, that argument doesn't really hold water because he was still demolished by Lando last season.
Yeah. Yeah, and now you're seeing Lando right at the back with Piastri. I mean, he finished behind Piastri this time.
Yeah, it was hard to say what was really going on there. Lando was kind of slow all weekend. I don't know what the deal
Sargent
was.
Finished ahead of him.
Yeah, for sure. But Piastri was definitely racy and got past Norris and Sargent in the last few laps of the race. Another thing to note is that Piastri, I think, did, 49 of the 50 laps on one set of tires after pitting on lap 1.
What?
Yeah, his second stint was 49 laps long on the hard tires.
I did not know that.
Yeah, pretty insane. And he was still racing people at the very end. It was pretty awesome.
Huh. Wow.
But yeah, that McLaren, I don't know if they just had another off week and had problems or what the deal is, but their race pace is nowhere. And even their qualifying pace, like Lando qualified, 19th? I don't know if he really qualified there. Was he out? I don't think he was out in Q1, was he? He must have taken a penalty or something.
He might have been out in Q1.
Wow.
Because I
don't know.
Yeah, I think he might have been out in Q1.
Oh yeah, based on that time, he probably would have been.
Yeah, because they're also talking about how it's like the first time he hasn't qualified outside of Q1, like, for a couple of years now.
Yeah. Pretty nuts. Yeah, Lando. If you see Lando going out in Q1, that car must be horrible.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad because McLaren's trajectory in 2021 was, everybody's joking. He's like, oh, they're the fastest Mercedes on the field.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. The driver pairing was going pretty well. And then 2022 with the reg changes, they just did not get it right. Kind of similar to Mercedes, but way worse. and it seems like they've just continued their downward trajectory.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to watch if you're a McLaren fan, especially like myself. Yeah, it's not easy being a McLaren fan right now. But
no, it's a little bit easier to be an Alpine fan though.
Yeah, I mean they're pretty much where they have been for the last few years, top of the midfield.
Yeah,
if you can call it a midfield. I mean, there's the
so
midfield
weird.
is like 9 teams right now, maybe 8, 7, I guess, if you take out AlphaTauri and McLaren.
Yeah, and
But
Aston Martin's pretending to be a top of the field team, and it's so weird. But yeah, Gasly was only a couple seconds behind Ocon in race pace.
yeah, I think
so cool
Gasly has impressed me how quickly he's picking up that car.
Yeah.
He's just kind of slotted right in, and he's right in there with Ocon pretty much.
Yeah.
I think both races he was right there with him. So,
do you think he's gonna outpace Ocon here in the next few races, or are they going to be pretty even with each other?
I think they're going to be pretty even most of the season. I in terms of their skill, I would rate them pretty close together. Gasly had an off year last season, and before that, I think he was one of the best drivers on the grid. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to say, but I rate them both pretty highly. Ocon is super consistent. Gasly's pretty consistent as well. So
yeah, I think outside of whatever drama issues they had in the past, in terms of just pure like race pace driver pairing, it's probably one of the better ones in the field.
Yeah, especially in terms of just consistently picking up points every week. You don't have people that are known for crashing on lap 1 or whatever that are gonna cost you points a lot. People like Kevin Magnussen,
Hey,
who did get
that's
P10.
1 point for Haas.
He did score points this weekend, or a point. But I mean, Magnussen and Hulkenberg have also been. I think they're going to be pretty close in pace too. But
yeah, it looks like Hulkenberg was. How far was he off Magnussen's pace? 3 seconds. So yeah.
Yeah. So I think they'll be pretty close too. Kevin Magnussen is not as consistent. Nico Hulkenberg has seemed to be pretty consistent so far this season. But yeah, we'll see.
Yep.
So Mercedes is also looking better this weekend. They had that letter that came out after the last race.
The Mercedes apology letter, which is becoming a trend.
Yeah, it's they released this letter on social media basically apologizing to their fans for how bad they are, even though they scored like P4 and P5 or whatever in Bahrain.
Yeah.
It was kind of cringy, if I'm being honest. But I will say they did seem to be a little more on the pace this week. They were definitely closer to Aston Martin, especially. I think that's going to be a battle to watch. Well, honestly, that whole battle between it's going to be Aston Martin, Mercedes, and Ferrari, I think is going to be kind of the one to watch this season because Red Bull's so far on the front.
Yeah. But no, we saw Russell and Hamilton, especially Hamilton, carving back up from where did he start? 8th,
something like that.
Or
yeah,
7th.
7th.
We saw him make some pretty good moves. So clearly, the car has more pace than he was talking about after the first race. He was pretty dejected after that first race.
Yeah, for sure. He was able to move up through the field a little bit, like you said, and he was on an unfavorable tire strategy as well.
Yeah.
So he was able to make that work. I think if he maybe got a little bit of a better strategy, he probably could have challenged Russell more for P4. But yeah, I would say Mercedes definitely looked better this week than they did last week. Ferrari is still struggling. While Leclerc did make his way through the field and end up in P7, and Sainz was P6, Ferrari did drop the ball a little bit during the safety car period, where Leclerc was driving around the track, and you have to keep to a certain delta time under safety car. You can't go too fast, but between the timing lines, you are allowed to speed up. And they should have told Leclerc to speed up, because if he did, he would have gotten past Hamilton at the pit exit. But instead, they waited to tell him until after Hamilton already passed him on pit exit. So he lost a place just because Ferrari didn't tell him to speed up, which was rather unfortunate for him.
Yeah, the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Ferrari, man. They're just not... They're not organized. They keep making mistakes like this. And
this is even with new management. And is it Leclerc's? And does Leclerc have a new engineer? Or
no, it's the same guy.
No?
Same guy. It's been for a couple of years, I think. But,
gotcha. But yeah, I was kind of hoping that the management shakeup would kind of help. Even if the car wasn't mechanically performing as well, the management shakeup could at least kind of help alleviate some of that pain. But that does not seem to be the case so far. And granted, we're only 2 races in, and it's a pretty new management team. But man, I hope they pick things up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of, for Ferrari fans, I'm sure it's very difficult to watch. They just keep, it seems like every race they do something like that, where it's just a completely unnecessary mistake.
Yeah, because the 2 places behind the Ferraris in 6th and 7th is Alpine, which is the midfield team.
Yeah.
That's kind of like, that's the midfield marker. So any further, and I mean, that's a bad place to be if you're Ferrari.
Yeah, it's kind of rough. Hopefully they can get that turned around for their sake. But I mean, no one's gonna challenge Red Bull this season. It's not even close. The only person that has the opportunity to challenge Verstappen for the championship is Perez. And even though he won this race, I do not see that happening, because if Max didn't start 15th, he would have won by a long ways.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that's kind of rounds off the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix for this week. Let's move on to paddock news. We've only got one thing, and I just wanted to talk about the chaos at the end of the Sebring 12-hour race.
I think I saw this.
You don't think you saw it, or you did?
I think I did, yeah.
You did? Yeah. It's kind of crazy. Matthew Jaminet, with 18 minutes left in the race, shoved Philippe Albuquerque off the track. Albuquerque lost control in the dirt and then speared across the track at the next corner to take out the other 2 leading LMDH cars.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy incident. And so the guy in 4th place was promoted to the lead and won the race.
I love endurance racing.
Class. Yes, it's very fun to watch. I love endurance racing. Lap traffic always makes things interesting.
And the tracks themselves are always so variable.
Yes. Sebring is insane. Like, every time I like play any games or anything where I can race on Sebring, it's crazy how bumpy that track is.
Oh, yeah.
It's
like I-80.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very difficult track because of the bumps, I would say. There's really not that much elevation change, but the bumps just unsettle the cars so much that you have to be so careful.
Yeah, so it was kind of entertaining to see, but also horrific. Anyways, yeah, endurance racing is pretty neat.
It is pretty neat. It's not often you see the 3 leaders take themselves out of the race.
No.
So that was very exciting. Unfortunate with only 18 minutes left out of a 12-hour race. But that's what happens at the end, is everybody wants to get the best position
That's when everybody's tuning in, yeah, the last half hour.
Yeah. All right, moving on to the pit stop championship for this week. Once again, Charles Leclerc tops the timing sheets on the pit stops with a time of 2.1 seconds. Actually, a pretty fast pit stop for these new pit stop regs. Second place was Alpine and Ocon. Third place was Perez. And then 4th through 10th, rounding off the points finishers, were Russell, Gasly, Sainz, Verstappen, Magnussen, Norris, and Stroll. So, pretty good showing from Ferrari. It was pretty average showing from Red Bull for them. They were always top of the timing sheets last year. Perez seemed to always win this particular segment. But yeah, Leclerc has started out his season very strong in the Pit Stop Championship.
Well, at least there's one thing going for him.
Yeah. Moving on to overtake of the week, I give this to Lance Stroll on Carlos Sainz at turn 13 in Saudi Arabia on lap 1. Turn 13 is that long left-hander that's banked, kind of a quarter of the way through the circuit. Very difficult to go around the outside, and Stroll managed to pull it off on the first lap with cold tires.
Yeah, that was a great-looking pass.
Fantastic. There really weren't that many other notable passes in that race in terms of anything too bold or daring.
No, something street circuit.
Yeah. So hopefully that changes in Australia next week. We'll see. Australia is not exactly known for having the most exciting races, but you never know. It could be a banger.
There's only one way to find out.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our predictions for the week. We'll start with last week's predictions for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. To remind everybody, the top 5 was Perez, Verstappen, Alonso, Russell, and Hamilton. I guessed Verstappen, Perez, Leclerc, Alonso, and Sainz with my dark horse as Bottas. Everything was wrong for me. What about you, Ben?
I had Verstappen, Perez, Leclerc, Alonso, Sainz with my dark horses Ocon. Those were all wrong as well.
Yeah, because we had the same top 5 prediction. I forgot about that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I forgot about that until you started reading that up.
He's got the same list that I do.
Yeah, it gets a little better for you from here on out, though. Fastest lap went to Max Verstappen. I guessed Lance Stroll and was very incorrect. What did you guess, Ben?
I had Verstappen. As well as for driver of the day, it was Verstappen.
Yep.
Yeah, and I just went with the boring choice, but it worked.
Yes, it did. For driver of the day, I went for Alex Albon. Unfortunately, his brakes had other ideas. All right.
I think he had a chance at driver of the day if his brakes didn't fail.
No, but I can dream. All right, let's move on to our predictions for the Australian Grand Prix. I have gone boring again with the winner being Max Verstappen. Second place, I said Sergio Perez. Third place, I'm putting Lance Stroll. I think he's going to have a good race. And again, I think Aston Martin is the second fastest car. Maybe Fernando Alonso has some problems or gets another penalty. Who knows? But I did put Alonso in P4, followed by Leclerc in P5. And my dark horse was Pierre Gasly.
Alrighty. Yeah, I also had Verstappen and Perez in first and second. I had Russell for my third. For when Alonso inevitably gets a penalty, and for when Leclerc inevitably has a bad pit strategy. After that, I have Alonso and then Leclerc for fourth and fifth. And my dark horse is Ocon again, because the hype train does not stop.
Does not stop. And once again, we have a pretty similar prediction with Stroll and Russell being the only difference in P3.
Yeah.
Hopefully this season shakes up a little bit.
Yeah, like I said, we want to be right. Daring is fun, but being right is more fun.
Yes. All right. Fastest lap prediction, I went with Fernando Alonso.
And I have Sergio Perez.
All right. And then driver of the day, I went with Pierre Gasly.
And I went with Russell. If Russell gets a podium, I could see him getting driver of the day. I don't think Verstappen's going to have... Hopefully they get the driveline problems figured out. And if they do, he's going to have a pretty free qualifying, and I don't really see any heroics getting him to driver of the day.
Yeah, probably not. All right. Ben, do you have any words of wisdom for the lovely people?
I mentioned earlier at the start of the show that I'd mowed my lawn, and it made me think, man, if everybody had a small motor to work on, then that'd be really good for, learning how motors work, because, cars have motors, and, well, less and less of them do, but, it's nice to have just like a small little mechanical thing to work on. They're cheap. So my words of wisdom, I guess, are invest in, maybe $100 or $200 on getting a little motor that you can work on, and practice changing the oil, practice changing out spark plugs, learn how they work. And yeah, I think it's a good experience to have.
Good advice, Ben. It's always nice to know how to do things and service your car, especially by yourself. I too have had to work on my car by myself because, boy, the dealerships really like to rip you off.
Also, RX-8 owner.
Yes, former RX-8 owner.
Yeah, he's reformed.
Yes, I have seen the light, and when I say the light, I mean the check engine light enough. So I sold my RX-8, and now I have a Mazda Speed 3 that also has a check engine light that keeps coming on. But that's has nothing to do with the engine. It's a minor emissions leak coming from what I believe to be a cracked fuel tank. But anyway, yeah, they I took it to the dealership a couple weeks ago. They wanted to charge me $700 for brakes, and I said, haha, no.
Didn't you wait? Wasn't your previous car before the RX-8 a Honda Civic Si?
It was, yes.
One of the most reliable front-wheel drive sports cars you can get.
Yeah, please don't remind me. Worst decision. Well, yeah. Not a great decision. If I could take it back, I would. But I've had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
The only reason I got rid of that car.
Type R.
The only reason I got rid of that car is for the front wheel drive. I didn't like it. I was not having as much fun as I thought I could have. And I will say the RX-8, while being a pain to keep maintained, was extraordinarily fun to drive. And then I sold that and got another front wheel drive sports car. So, taking a step backwards, but it's okay. Next one will be rear wheel drive for sure. I don't know when that will be. I need to pay off my current one first.
Mustang.
Possibly. I've thought about it. Mustang, Charger, something in there. The only thing with the Charger is doesn't come with a manual, so that's going to make it hard to sell that to me. If I get a Mustang, it'll have to be a GT.
You can get some Chargers with a manual, right? You have to.
I don't know. I think they'll just have the pedal shifters. But I don't know. If they do make a Charger with a manual, I'd be very interested.
They have to. That's like Dodge's whole thing. Is like, look how old-fashioned our cars are.
Well, I thought it was more look how big our engines are, but
old-fashioned,
Old-fashioned.
I'm not against it. Yeah.
I don't know. If I can find a Charger with a manual, that'd be very tempting. But Mustang GT is definitely tempting. I've also thought about a Miata. Don't need power, just need fun.
Ooh. Love a Miata. Or a GT86. I could talk for hours about what car I would buy if I had an extra $50,000 lying around.
Oh, exactly. If I had an extra $50,000 lying around, Mark IV Supra. Oh, man. Okay. But yes, I can tell we are car nerds. I would love to get back into a rear-wheel drive car someday, and I'm sure that will happen someday. If I strike it rich, I would love the new 400Z, or is it called just the Z now, I think?
It's just called the Z, yeah.
Yeah.
Would you buy one of the new Supras?
For performance, yes. I think they are very good in performance. However,
they come with a manual now.
Do they come with a manual now?
Yeah, they added it halfway through last year, I think. It comes with the inline 6 version.
That is a game changer. I did not know that. Because that was my only problem with that car.
Yeah, now you have it.
Okay.
Confirmed.
Well, maybe I get the Supra. I mean, it's the same price as the Z, so that's going to be a decision I have to make. The Z is very tempting with the twin-turbo V6. Yeah. I don't know. Nissan makes very good engines, so it's gonna be a that's tight now that I know that the Supra comes with a stick. So yeah, we'll see. And then there's also the Porsche Cayman, which I'd have to fork a little more over. But oh man, that car looks insanely fun.
Yeah, I've been seeing reviews for the new the Evija. Is that what it is, or is it the Amira? The new Lotus.
The Lotus. Oh yeah. Man, if I could get a Lotus, that'd be insane. Because Lotuses are.
If I had $100,000 laying around to spend on a mid-engined Camry engined sports car from Britain, that would be it.
Absolutely. I mean, Lotus it's the pinnacle of driver experience.
It's beautiful.
They strip everything down. It's not a comfortable car. you get no amenities. I don't think they even have radios. But
well, no, this new one, like, it has like heated seats. I'm pretty sure. Like, it has
it actually
Apple
has stuff?
CarPlay. Yeah, actually, it's actually comfortable inside.
Ooh, because I know the Elise, which is their classic car, is like essentially a Pontiac Fiero on the inside.
Yeah, this is more like it's like an Evora, but with a nicer interior. Is I guess the closest comparison.
Gotcha. That'd be nice.
We're starting to get into a different podcast, aren't we?
Maybe, possibly.
I just need to start my own on what car I would drive, and it changes every day of the week.
Every day of the week, it's true. It's hard to decide. There's so many good ones. But yeah, so like you said, it's getting into a different show. So we'll just wrap this one up. Thank you everybody so much for listening to this episode of RevHang. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a like or rating on the platform you listened on because it really helps us out. If you want to see updated standings for IndyCar and F1 or a calendar of upcoming races from all sorts of different series, check out our website, revhang.com. If you have a question about racing or about us, hit us up on Twitter using hashtag RevHangPodcast, and we may feature your question on the next show. I check it every week, so do not be shy. Please post something. We would love to talk to you guys.
It doesn't even have to be racing related. Tell us how wrong we are about the Mark V Supra. I don't know.
Absolutely. You can follow Ben on Instagram at BenjiMeetsWorld and myself at 2N_squared. We'll be back in 2 weeks to cover the Australian Grand Prix and the PPG 375 at Texas Motor Speedway for IndyCar. But until then, I have been Nathan.
And I'm Ben.
Thanks for hanging out, guys.
See you guys.